What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Mr. Plays, and today I'm going to be doing a tier list of all the champions in Marvel Contest of Champions. So I'm going to be taking the tier list that I have before, I'm going to be adding the new champions from this past month, and also tiering the buffs that were just added this month. So first off, I'm going to take the two new champions from last month and put them in their tiers. So first off, let's go with Mcoc Chavez, because she was sort of disappointing. So Mcoc Chavez, we just gotta admit, she's a bad champion. They did not do a good job with her. So she's got this all of her stuff comes from these parallel dimensions that she can get. And so pretty much, she can have different types of parallel dimensions. There's a utopian parallel, dark dimension, and negative zone. And so pretty much each thing does some different stuff. So when the heavy attack ends, or if it's launched from a special during that heavy attack, pretty much you activate that dimension for 30 seconds. And then depending on the dimension, if it's utopian parallel, you reduce the opponent's fury, armor up, precision, and cruelty buff potency by 70%. So that's some nice buff ability reduction there. If you use a dark dimension, then you reflect 40% of hit damage taken as energy damage, which has a cap also. So that's decent on, like, defense, but she's never really going to be activating the dark dimension, because that's not really going to be happening too much. So it's really only good for defense, and it's not really ever going to happen too much on defense. Then finally, the negative zone, where you reduce the opponent's ability power gain rate by 60%. So this is a decent dimension. It can do some stuff. It can cheese some stuff like Doctor Strange, any type of passive power gain. You can just spam heavies in the corner, so that they won't be getting power, you'll just keep draining it. But again, other champions can get through those fights much quicker and a lot better. And also, so pretty much, for each unique parallel dimension you have, and for each buff on the opponent, you get some extra attack and some energy resistance. But the thing is, it's not enough attack, and you can only have 3 unique dimensions, and that takes a bit to get up to. And just the attack rating payoff isn't that much. And even on, like, resistor nodes, she's not putting up any insane numbers. So she's not doing that great damage. It's pretty much heavy attacks. It's got this cool thing sort of like Dr. Doom and Wasp, where when you charge a heavy after landing a non-combo ending hit of a basic combo, you will inflict a passive stun. And so pretty much you can do that 4-hit combo into the heavy attack, just like Dr. Doom can do, just like Wasp can do. So that's a cool thing that she has in her abilities. And then a special one, pretty much each unique parallel dimension will give yourself some power gain during 40% of bar power over only 1.5 seconds. So pretty much you can get a bunch of power back from this. So that's one of the few good things about her, is like after you throw a special one, you'll get almost all that. You'll get like all that power back, maybe even some more. Then the special 2, pretty much the final 3 hits, you will open a portal to the Big Bang dimension. This deals a burst of energy damage equal to 50% hit damage dealt, so some extra burst damage off of the special 2. And these hits also gain bonus effect based on the last dimension activated. So if it's Utopian Parallel, you get some extra damage. Dark Dimension, you regen 12% of the hit damage dealt. And Negative Zone, it's unblockable. And then the special 3, you'll activate one of each parallel dimension. And then finally, her signature ability. What happens if at least 3 unique dimensions are active? You become supercharged. And then launching a special 2 during a heavy will give you an extra stack of whatever dimension was activated. And also, you'll get some more potency on the dimensional energy infusion. So pretty much, she doesn't have enough damage. That's the thing. She also doesn't really have much utility either. She gets some extra attack from opponents getting buffs, but she has no way to really control those buffs. She can lessen the potency of fury, armor, precision, and cruelty buffs, but she can't do anything about unstoppable. She can't do anything about power gain. She can do that with the negative zone, but she can't really do anything about more annoying buffs that are just buffs that you can nullify with so many other Mystic champions. And then also, she just doesn't have like any real power control. She has that negative zone, which has their power gain rate, ability power gain rate reduced by 60%, but this doesn't have anything to do with them getting hit. So if they don't get any passive power gain or power gain buff, there's no way she's going to reduce their power gain at all, and that's what happens in most matchups. And also, pretty much, it's just, the thing is that she's not as, also, matching dimensions will have less duration for each stack, so you have not enough there's not as much length on the dimensions the more you stack up. So it's not like you can just stack up a bunch of them and do some crazy stuff. And she's just like this. She doesn't have much utility. She can't really control buffs too much, and she doesn't have much damage either. So she's just a bad champion. They really didn't do a good job with her. I feel like this month it was Hercules' month to shine, and America Chavez felt like they rushed her. Like, her abilities aren't that long. Felt like she didn't get all the, because she's a pretty good character in the comics and stuff. But I feel like they didn't do her justice with the champion. But hopefully she'll get a buff. So now on to Hercules. Hercules, this was an easy decision. Hercules is going straight all the way up into overpowered. So pretty much all I have a bunch of different tiers. I got cheat code at the top, then overpowered, beyond God, God, good, average, bad, terrible, and memes. Cheat codes, only Ghost and Quake because they're the only 2 cheat codes, and then everyone else just sort of fits into their own category. But Hercules, he easily gets into overpowered category. So he was described before as a ramp-up champion, but he really isn't. The only thing the ramp-up does is it makes it a lot quicker in fight to get into his damage, but even without the ramp-up, you can get into his crazy damage so quickly within a fight. Like, Karate Mike has been posting so many videos, and he just does crazy stuff with this guy. So pretty much, he's also got he's so good with the Suicide Masteries, so pretty much the potency of incoming bleeds are reduced by 50%, and also the potency of incoming poisons have 15% less potency, and the recovery reduction from poisons 20% less effective. So he's really good for the suicides. He'll actually be healing some off of the suicides, which is really nice. And so his whole thing, all his damage comes from, is from these feats of strength. So pretty much, you can get up to 12 of these, and if you strike a non-stunned opponent with any hit of a heavy attack, if you intercept a dashing opponent with any attack, or if you stand up after being knocked down, you'll gain 1 feat of strength. And then pretty much you can get you can add 1 to your persistent charge the first time you complete each feat of strength each fight. So it'll take 6 fights to get him all to the 12 when you immediately enter a fight, because you won't really be standing up after being knocked down in a fight unless you're taking a heavy to the face or a special to the face, and that's not really that good of an idea. And so each feat will give you 1 indefinite strength, so each increasing armor penetration by a bit, and also all attacks deal bursts of physical damage equal to 10% of the damage they dealt, but this can stack up to 12 stacks, so it's 120% extra damage every single hit, which is really great. And what happens is, for 2 seconds after completing a feat, you get about 1,000 extra attack rating and 50% longer buff duration. And if a special attack is activating during this time, the bonus will remain through the whole special, which is nice. And also, each feat of strength you have, you become stun immune, and each stun prevented by this immunity, you'll remove a strength. So it's really good for encroaching stun, or maybe Black Panther Civil War stuff, where you're going to get stunned even if you're not getting parried, but you can just become immune to that stun, which is really great. And also, if you dash back after landing the first light or medium hit in a combo, it inflicts a non-stacking Infuri debuff for 7 seconds. So this makes them more aggressive, and so it makes them a lot easier to nail those intercepts. And also, it will reduce their offensive ability accuracy by 60%, which is really nice. This also has a cooldown of 10 seconds, but that's not too bad. And then pretty much this whole thing is you want to throw the special 1. Because on activation, it will give you a True Sense buff, which means they can't miss or auto-block for 16 seconds. But also, the first hit will grant a precision buff for 25 seconds. And if you intercepted them, you get 2 extra precisions. And then after you throw a special 1, you'll throw the special 2. And this makes the potent... And then, so this, pretty much, it will give you a cruelty buff. And also, if you intercept it, you will... With the special attack, you'll get 2 additional cruelty buffs. And the potency of the burst damage via the strength during this attack is increased by up to 50% for each armor up on the opponent, which can go up to 200% increase. So if the opponent has 4 armor ups, you can get even more damage off of this special. And also the special attack will inflict a 3-second stun. And it's just, this is where a ton of his damage comes from. If you're playing him right, you can get like a 70k final hit of this special, which is absolutely insane. And also, Special 3's got something funny going on where you can gain an indestructible buff for 4 seconds, and after this attack, if the opponent has 3 bars of power, you gain a power gain buff, which gives you 100% of bar power over 3 seconds. So if you accidentally push this opponent to 3 bars of power or something, you can just finish off your combo and throw your special 3, and then after the special 3, you'll be indestructible for 4 seconds, so they can throw their special 3, and then you won't take any damage, and then you just get a full bar of power, which is really nice. And even without his awakened ability, he's still absolutely overpowered, but his awakened ability is absolutely insane, where once per fight, when receiving damage that would result in a knockout, you gain an immortality buff, preventing death, and also making you unblockable for about 4 to 9 seconds. And this immortality is paused during your specials or when you're landing basic attacks, and it's removed if you're struck by a special 3. But for 2 seconds, and also for 2 seconds after completing a feat of strength, you'll gain 6 to 35% combat power rate. So this immortality is absolutely insane. It's only a 9-second immortality, but it's paused whenever you're landing a hit, and also it's paused during your special attacks, and you're completely unblockable. So this can go up to, you can pretty much stretch this out to like a 30-40 second immortality if you're just landing your combos correctly and maybe slowing down your combos, and it's just absolutely insane. You can bypass so many nodes, stuff that will reflect damage onto you. You just can't die. So you're just going through, you're taking so much damage back, but you can't die, so you're just going crazy. And it's just so much damage, so much utility, and Hercules is just absolutely insane, which puts him all in the overpowered category. So next up, I'll go over the 3 buffs that were just added this month. So the first buff I will talk about is the Hood. So the Hood, pretty much, he had this weird thing where he had this buff before, but then people got mad about it because there was no more Fate Seal on the Special 2 and some other stuff. So then they had to take away the buff, rework the whole buff, and then they put it back in the game. And I feel like God's a pretty good category for him right now. And the Hood, he's a really good champion, but I feel like he's just not at the same level as those other Beyond God champions above him. But he's got some really nice utility. He's got some decent damage now. Because before, pretty much he had a decent amount of utility, but not as much damage. But they added in some more damage. And so his whole thing is, he's got these bullets. These hex pistols with 28 loaded bullets. You can get up to 42 of those, and they persist from fight to fight. And if you nullify buff, you load 2 bullets. If you make the opponent miss while invisible, you'll load a bullet when the invisibility ends. And so pretty much medium attacks and your special 2 will fire a bullet and inflict a stacking hex, which lasts 12 seconds. Each hex will deal a burst of about 1500 damage when it expires, and it's refreshed when a new hex is gained. So pretty much his whole thing is, you want to stack up as many hexes as you can. And then he has his invisibility mechanic, where pretty much while it's active, you get some extra critical damage rating, and then also incoming attacks have a 120% chance to miss, but each time the opponent misses an attack, this miss chance is decreased by 20% until the invisibility ends. So pretty much you have 2 guaranteed misses, and then it goes up to 80% chance to miss, but still 2 misses, which can load 2 bullets, which is good. And then crits will inflict a non-stacking stagger, lasting 5 seconds. And whenever a stagger opponent gains a buff, it will nullify those buffs. And then when the stagger ends, it will inflict some direct damage to the opponent and also heal you for matching him out, which is really nice. Then heavy attacks, it will refresh the duration of all personal bleed and fate seal effects you apply to the opponent, but also will cause all hexes to expire immediately with 100% extra potency. So his whole thing is, you want to stack up as many hexes as you can, then throw a heavy attack, have all those hexes expire, and just do tons of damage. His special one can shock, dealing a decent amount of energy damage over 7.5 seconds. And also, if that shock expires after lasting its full time, it will inflict a stun debuff, which is cool. Then special 2 will apply a Fate Seal to the opponent, which will nullify all buffs and prevent any new buffs from activating. This will happen for 6.5 seconds. And while this Fate Seal is active, the opponent's ability accuracy is also reduced by 65%, which is nice. And also, after the special 2, you'll activate invisibility. The special 3 gives you some extra attack for each full bar of power the opponent has, and also will inflict a bleed, which is pretty nice. But his whole thing is, you don't really want to do that. You want to just sort of spam special 2s, and you want to have as many bullets loaded, and then just keep stacking those hexes before throwing a heavy. And finally, his signature ability, pretty much you become immune to all stun effects. A firing bullet while invisible will have a chance to steal 10% of the opponent's power, getting twice that amount of power in the process. So that's pretty good. It's a pretty good signature ability, but it's not the greatest. You can get some power, you can steal some power, but it's not anything too crazy. He's pretty much the same awakened and unawakened. So the Hood, I feel like they kept his utility this time, and they just gave him a bit more damage with all those hexes. So I feel like he's good. He's a God tier champion now. Maybe in the future he might get bumped up to beyond God, but I feel like God is a good spot for him. So next up, let's go over the Venompool buff. So Venompool, he was absolutely atrocious before this. But now, he just got completely overhauled. And now I'm going to put him into Beyond God. So Venompool, his whole new thing is, he's got this whole blender buff thing. So pretty much, you've got this cooking meter. It begins at 50 charges, and you gain 10 more charges every 5 seconds. Any attack from each champion grants 4 charges, and whenever the cooking meter hits 100, you spend all those to get a random, unique, indefinite blender buff. And then, so pretty much the blender buffs, there are a few different types. There's Precision, Energize, Clintar Mutation, which will give you some more extra attack, and if it's a Spider-Verse champion, they can't evade. Hunter Spider, which attacks you an additional 25% physical damage, so a bit of extra burst damage there. And then finally Malice, which gives up to 100% Fury buff potency based on how long the fight has gone on, and this will give you a max bonus at 200 seconds. So he's really good for long fights. He's really good for like labyrinth fights and stuff like that, because you're really just ramping up that damage and those buffs within the fight. And these blender buffs, so they won't stack. Once you've acquired all 5 other blender buffs, you'll instead gain stacking fury buffs, which give you each about 600 attack range for 60 seconds. And so after you get a blender buff, if you don't like it, you can throw a heavy attack, which will re-roll the recently gained buff. And then if the opponent is knocked down, you have a 100% chance to gain a vicious buff, increasing the potency of damage over time debuffs by 60%. And this will last 5 seconds per unique buff, so that can last a long time. Specials will inflict bleed, which is a pretty good bleed, and while you're fighting robots, this becomes a matching degeneration debuff, so you can still hurt the robots with specials. And then also, he's got this thing while fighting tech champions, you're immune to power drain, power burn, and shocks, and armor break debuffs. And if an effect is prevented this way, you gain 50 cooking meter. So pretty much that's really good. You can get a bunch of cooking meter against tech champions. So he's really good for that. His special 1, each hit has a 75% chance to Om-Nom one of each unique buff on the opponent, which will remove it and grant 50 cooking meter. And if the Om-Nom buff was an armor up, you also get a regen buff. So you don't really want to use the special 1 because mainly you want to use the special 2, where so pretty much it does the bleed damage, and if this attack intercepts the opponent, you will inflict a stun debuff for 3 seconds. And if you're able to finish the moonwalk after the special 2, he gains a temporary duplicate of each of his blender buffs, lasting 20 seconds, so you can really get a bunch of damage and a bunch of buffs there. But if the dance is interrupted, you'll instead gain a power gain buff, which gives you 1 bar of power over 10 seconds, which is pretty good, but that's more of a defensive mechanic. And so special 3 makes your cooking meter become spicy for 20 seconds, which makes it build up twice as fast. And if it hits 100 while spicy, all personal bleed and degen buffs on the opponent are paused for 8 seconds. So that's pretty much making his bleed and degen debuffs 8 seconds longer, which is really good. So his whole thing is, you really want to get all those blender buffs, then get tons of fury buffs, and then you can just get some crazy damage. And so his signature ability, you start each quest with 1 persistent charge. You can spend in the pre-fight menu to select 1 blender buff as his fave food for the next fight, and this is more likely to be chosen at random and gains plus 10 to 60% potency. So pretty much if you want more guaranteed crits or whatever you want, you can choose that as your fave food, and then it will be more likely to be chosen and more potent. And each time you enter a fight, you get his persistent charge back. So pretty much you can do this every single fight. And so Venompool, he's such a great champion. He's so much fun. He's looking like a lot of fun to play with. He's looking like a lot of fun to just he's looking like a great champion that you can intercept with that special 2. You can just stun, and you can just get so many fury buffs because they last so long, and they're just so potent, and you can just end up doing so much damage with Venompool. So next up, the final buff from this month we have is King Groot. So me, I wasn't much of a King Groot fan before this, but now I think he's really good. This buff, it just gave him the damage that he didn't have before. Before he had some pretty good regeneration, and some armor breaks and poison, but it wasn't like anything too crazy of damage. So King Groot, he's immune to bleed, power drain, power burn, which is nice. And so pretty much he's got this malice thing. You start the fights with a malice passive, which gives you a fury buff. This lasts as long as King Groot has at least one personal fury buff remaining. While this malice is active, you gain up to 100% fury buff potency based on how long the fight has gone on, which is maxed out after 100 seconds. And when this malice ends, it will go on cooldown for 13 seconds. When it's on cooldown, any attack from either champion has a 20% chance to give a fury charge. And when the cooldown ends, you'll gain a fury buff for each charge acquired, and you'll re-enter your malice. And each time King Groot's attack is evaded, auto-blocked, or misses, you'll gain 2 fury charges. Cooldown of 2 seconds, so that's good. You can ramp up those fury charges more against evade champions. And then heavy attacks will pause all poison and armor breaks debuffs on the opponent for 3 seconds. And if you have the malice, you'll spend 1 fury buff to instead pause it for 6 seconds. So that's even longer poison and armor breaks, which is amazing. His special one will inflict up to 3 armor break debuffs. Each have a 100% chance to activate. And it will also remove an armor up and reduce armor rating by almost 300 for 15 seconds. You can get these up to 10 stacks. And these are really good because if you have the Spare Mastery, that's also a heal block with a bit of heal reversal there. And if you have Malice, you'll spend 1 Fury buff to make the armor break indefinite. So you can get indefinite armor breaks, which is really good. And then special 2, each hit will deal some direct damage, which is tripled against robots. It will also inflict a poison debuff, reducing healing effects by 30%, dealing a bunch of damage over 10 seconds. And if you have Malice, then it will spend 1 Fury buff to increase the duration of the poison by 100%. Then special 3 gives you a regen buff, recovering 5,000 health over 3 seconds. And also, this is paused when he's heal blocked. So if you get heal blocked from somewhere, then it will just pause, and then it will restart after the heal block is over, which is really nice. And then you can spend, if you have Malice, it will spend 1 Fury buff to increase the buff duration by 50%. So that's even more healing. And then pretty much his signature ability for the special 2, while your Malice is active, you'll gain even more poison duration based on how long the fight is going on. And when Malice enters cooldown, you'll gain a regen buff, recovering a ton of health over 13 seconds. So this guy, he was really good at healing before, but now he's also got so much damage here. They added a bunch of damage with all those armor breaks, all those furies, and he's also got so much regeneration. It's crazy. He's got a lot of regeneration. Of course, it's not as good as Wolverine's, but still great regen, great sustainability. And King Groot, I feel like he deserves this Beyond God tier. So next up, now I'm going to be taking champions that I feel like I should move around on this list. So first up, I'm really taking Black Panther, moving him up to Beyond God. So I know got a 5-star of Black Panther, and he's just absolutely insane. You don't even have to be like going crazy with intercepts or anything. You just get to those 15 cruelty stacks. Then you just do a heavy attack to enter Panther's Might. Then you get a matching amount of precisions. So that's like 15 precisions, 15 cruelties, throw a special 2, tons of bleeds, tons of damage. It's just absolutely insane. Black Panther's just so amazing. A lot of people are very much underrating this champion. So I feel like he deserves a Beyond God spot. Next up, we're also going to be promoting Cable up to Beyond God. If you make him a Horseman of Apocalypse, he's insane. He's just absolutely insane. People are taking this guy to rank 3 all the time because of just the absolute insanity that he has from the Horseman ability. Before the Horseman, he was bad. Now that he can become a Horseman, and it's just absolutely insane. He's just such a good champion. You can inflict so many degenerations off the heavy attack, and they're just doing so much damage, taking them down for so much, and it's just insane. So yeah, he deserves the Beyond God spot. So now I'm going to be demoting a few characters. So Iceman, I'm going to be bringing down to God. So I feel like he used to be a Beyond God tier champion, but I feel like this Beyond God level has gone, the champions there are just too good, and he's sort of lost an edge over time, so I feel like he's good in the God tier category. Now we'll also be moving down Massacre and Korg. So I feel like Korg, he's he's pretty good, but he's not as good as Beyond God. Again, not as good as these other champions. Massacre, same thing. He's got some nice damage off the special too if you throw it into the block. But again, it's just not as good as these other champions. And Korg, he's more of a defensive character, but he's still pretty good in offense. He's still God tier in offense. And so I feel like these are good rankings, God tier for both these champions. Next up, I'm going to be taking Black Bolt, moving up to God. I'm going to be moving this guy up all the way to Beyond God with synergies and at a really high sig. It's a lot to ask for, but he is insane. He's putting up crazy numbers, and it's absolutely nuts. So I feel like Black Bolt, he deserves this Beyond God spot. And so I feel like that's all the movements I'm going to be doing for now. But thank you guys so much for watching this video, and be sure to tell me down in the comment section below what I should change around, who I should move up, who I should move down, which rankings are just absolutely absurd, and be sure to tell me down in the comment section below what you think of this tier list, and also don't be sure to smash that like button if you like the video, because that's what the button is for, and also subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss any of our uploads. But until next time, peace!